Moon is the production of director and writer Duncan Jones. Prior to directing Moon, Duncan was a camera operator for director Tony Scott, among other things. And in 2005, Duncan founded Liberty Films with producer Stuart Finnegan. Duncan has a degree in philosophy at the College of Worcester, Ohio, and started graduate school in philosophy at Vanderbilt, but then was pulled away to go to film school in London. And he worked in the computer game industry and crossed over to the dark side to shoot commercials, music videos, and short films. But we've brought him back from the dark side, and he's now doing feature films. Moon premiered at the Sundance Film Festival to quite excellent reviews, and was recently screened at the South by Southwest Festival in Austin just this past Saturday. So we're very happy to have Duncan with us today at Space Center Houston. Moon was picked up recently by Sony Pictures Classics and will be released in the US in June, a month prior to the 40th anniversary of Apollo 11. Without further ado, please help me in welcoming director Duncan Jones.
This has to be the most intimidating audience I've had to show my film to. I just wanted to say a few words before we start the screening. This film is very much an homage to a lot of the science fiction films that I loved growing up. Silent Running and Outland and the original Alien. Films which had a more grown-up approach, I think, to science fiction than a lot of the science fiction that gets made today. I did want to warn families here that there is a little bit of cursing. So you need to be aware of that. And the themes of the film are maybe more grown up. But hopefully it's the kind of science fiction that hasn't been made for a while, and hopefully there's an audience for that. Please don't have your phones on or take any pictures during the film. Sony would get very mad at me if any images were taken. But I hope you enjoy it, and thank you very much. Well, I guess we have to see how this one does first. But there will be, the next film I'm hoping to do is also going to be science fiction, and it sort of takes place in the same timeline and the same world as Moon, although the next film is a city-based film. It takes place in a future Berlin. But I was talking to Sam the other day when I saw him in Austin, and we're hoping to have him at least do a little cameo in the next film. So. A little bit of an idea of what happens to this guy when he gets back to Earth. I'd met Sam Rockwell, who is the actor in this film, a while ago, and I'd talked to him about doing another film, and he'd really liked the script for this other film that I was going to do, but he wanted to play a different character than the one I wanted him to play. So we met up, and he was trying to convince me that he could play the character, and I was trying to tell him, no, you need to play the character I want you to play. And we couldn't convince each other, but he was such an amazing actor, I really wanted to work with him. So I actually wrote the film for him, so that I could get to work with him on my first film. Yeah, he realizes that, but from his position on the moon there, there's not an awful lot he can do about it. His only hopes of trying to find a solution to that, or at least to make the best of a situation of having a 3-year lifespan, is to get back to Earth. The idea would be is that the original Sam, who we hear briefly when he does his video message back to Earth, did go up to the moon for a stint and did his time, and then selective memories were recorded, and those were the ones that were uploaded to the clones. As you may have noticed, being a man who may have seen the original films, that there was a lot of science fiction, Silent Running and Outland, and of course 2001, which we pay homage to. GERTY is a composite character, but HAL 9000 is very much involved. But what I hope we did is we used the visual sort of stylings of Hal and Kevin Spacey's voice to make the audience expect a certain thing, and then Gertie obviously turns out to be a very different character than Hal was. I think there's a couple of different scenes that I really am proud of for different reasons. Some for technical reasons, things that we were able to achieve on an independent film budget, and then others for Sam's performance. I think the scene where he's in the vehicle and he makes his video, where he has his live video phone call with his daughter is emotionally very powerful, and I think Sam did an amazing job, and I think as a scene in the film, it's really strong and has a lot of heart. I think a lot of the scenes between the two Sams are really good for the same reason. You know, you do kind of forget, at least I still forget that it's one guy playing both parts. I think he does an amazing job. And then on a more technical level, I think the ping pong scene was something that we worked really hard on, and it was very difficult to do. Are you lobbing softballs at me and just waiting to hit me with a really technical question? I was expecting this audience to give me a real hard time about the lunar gravity, or where you would actually do helium-3 mining on the moon. We did not go to the moon, unfortunately.
Would you sign up to go to the moon for a 3-year contract?
I have problem going on roller coasters, let alone. Certainly nothing academic. It was very much my own, human experiences of feelings of, at certain points in my life. I'm an only child. Sam's an only child, and we both kind of have lived unusual. We've had unusual histories and backgrounds, and our childhoods were both unusual. Also, I was, when I was writing the film, I was going through a long-distance relationship, and my girlfriend was on the other side of the world. And there's a lot of sort of natural human feelings that you have when you're in a long-distance relationship, sort of paranoia and just the difficulties of it that all played into the sense of isolation that Sam goes through. But I didn't delve into too many textbooks to write the film. It was definitely part of the collective canon of movies that influenced me growing up. It was one of many. There's a lot of. I think if anyone watches science fiction films, they'll be able to pick out lots of different things, lots of different films that I appreciated and loved. We worked with a gentleman called Bill Pearson, who's a model builder. And he built the Nostromo in the original film Alien. He's based at Shepperton Studios, and he built all of our rovers and the spacesuits to the design of my concept artist, who's a guy called Gavin Rothery. Now, Gavin and I are both, huge fans of the works of Ron Cobb and Sid Mead, and the guys who did all those science fiction films from the 70s and 80s. So if there's any authentic actual spacesuits that these are based on, it would only be secondhand through those designs that we were referencing from science fiction films. Mechanical counter-pressure suit. This was based on a mechanical counter-pressure suit. There's a couple of, again, quite tongue-in-cheek things we do. He has a yellow T-shirt on at the very beginning of the film that says "Wake me up when it's quitting time," which I thought was quite, a nice tie-in with what actually happens to him. And I think there's a wedding ring in there, so all of them basically have exactly the same clothes and keepsakes. And then we use there's a really cheesy Chesney Hawkes sound, alarm clock that he has. That's "I am the one and only," which is again, it's all the old idea of cloning and setting that joke up. The design of the set was pseudo-scientific. We basically worked out what we believed would be sort of necessary facilities within the base itself for a manned station that would have this GERTY robotic system that would be able to move into any part of the base that it needed to. So there was a floor plan that we kind of worked out that would sort of make sure that he had access to all of that both GERTY and Sam would have access to all of the elements of the base that he'd need to. As far as the amount of space there, actually one of the questions I would love to ask maybe someone in here is just what the practicalities would be of creating some kind of concrete or concrete-like substance using ice water and sort of refined minerals from regolith on the lunar surface. I don't know if that's possible or not, but I would certainly think it would be better to create a base that way than to try and bring it up there with you. The idea is that this facility is set up to collect and refine something called helium-3, which is theoretically, well, it is a potential fuel for a theoretical form of energy that we might be able to use in the future here on Earth for fusion power. The way that you collect it, we have hypothesized, is to actually pick up the first few inches of lunar regolith, which is the material on the lunar surface. You bring it into this moving facility, and you bake it to release the helium-3, the helium-3 gas from the regolith. Then you collect that as a supercooled liquid, and you put it in tanks and you send it back to Earth. So those big machines are basically harvesters, and they just travel around the lunar surface, picking up the regolith and cooking out the gas and collecting it. And then Sam has to go to these harvesters and take the canisters back to the base so he can send them back to Earth. Well, in my own limited nerdy way, I am a big fan of fusion power. I would love to see that move forward, but I don't know what the practicalities of that are. From my limited research, helium-3 seems to certainly be one of the more, interesting possible fuels for it. I certainly think that if China and Russia and India and other places are actually looking at getting back to the moon, it's not just for the view. Then I'm sure that NASA is well, this is the wrong audience for me to be saying anything to, but I would imagine that NASA would be as up to speed and as interested in helium-3 collection as any other nation is.
And the joke is that fusion is always 20 years away, no matter where in time you are.
It's a limited amount of real science. My research basically went as far as Robert Zubrin's Entering Spacebook, Michael Light's Full Moon Lunar Photography, sort of 70 mil cleaned up versions of the Apollo mission lunar photography, and Daniel Dennett's work on the COG project, which was an attempt at trying to create some kind of artificial intelligence at MIT. My background in philosophy was trying to study how to apply ethics to artificial intelligent machines and very ridiculous theoretical science fiction stuff. I love saying this. The budget was $5 million. Sunshine, which was done by Danny Boyle, which is another science fiction film, is considered an independent science fiction film. That was done for $50 million. So there's a pretty we're very proud of this. As for constraining it, it did constrain it, but we kind of worked backwards. We knew what our budget was going to be up front, and we had to come up with an aesthetic and a technique for making the film that would fit the budget that we had. That's kind of, it's a lot of money for a first-time independent film, but also for what we were trying to achieve, it was a tiny amount of money. I think, in all honesty, I think working with Sam Rockwell was very intimidating at first because I have a huge amount of respect for him, and I was aware that he's an actor who likes to be improvisational, and as we're making a film that required so many technical elements to the way we had to shoot it, because Sam's playing multiple parts, before we got started, I was very concerned that I would be able to communicate to Sam how important it was that when I asked him to stick to something, he actually would. But it actually it wasn't a problem. After an example, to sort of showing him what it was we were doing and why we had to do it that way, he was incredibly disciplined. Absolutely. I was incredibly fortunate to get a composer called Clint Mansell to do the score for this film. He did another film called Requiem for a Dream, which was sort of permanently in my CD tray when I was writing the script, or writing the story that became the script. He's an incredibly talented guy, and he's actually done quite a few films now, but I knew all along that I wanted him, and we didn't know if we would be able to get him to do the film, but we very fortunate he agreed to do it. He made a lot of the choices on instrumentation, but I was very happy with when we had early discussions and he was suggesting things, and I was very happy with all the choices he was making. Again, for both budgetary reasons and also for the aesthetic of it, a lot of the films that I loved growing up were from this late 70s and early 80s period when model miniatures were still very popular. They obviously don't get used that much anymore, but we decided we would shoot them with model miniatures. So we had a sound stage which had a fake lunar surface in it, and the rovers themselves came in 2 scale sizes. There was ones which were about 1 foot long, and then other ones which were about 3 feet along, 3 feet long. And they were pulled with fishing wire, and it was very old-fashioned model miniatures techniques. We were in the fortunate position, sort of living in the 21st century, that we were able to do a lot of cleanup work on those model miniatures in post-production after we'd shot them. But not many people use model miniatures anymore. The group, again, this gentleman, Bill Pearson, who built the Nostromo, he was available to us. Was very fortunate, and he helped us with using a lot of traditional techniques and showing us how to do it. And it was terrific. And I hope more films take advantage of it, because it does give you a very unique look. I think the lunar industry's idea was that it would be most cost effective to not have to constantly be training new personnel and sending them back and forth from the Earth to the Moon. So it would be better to just bulk supply the lunar base with clones, and then use them as you need them. Because I don't know. Again, this might be a question for you, but I'm of the understanding that there may be a couple of 100 years worth of helium-3 available on the Moon. If that's the case, you need to keep that base supplied, with clones to keep you going for that long, and then you have to have enough extras that if there are accidents, or if you lose some, or if upon awakening they're not completely, as cognizant as you need them to be, you need to have enough auxiliaries that you can keep using the clones and not run out. Otherwise, it's going to start getting expensive having to ship new people and new clones or new personnel there. Yeah, the original Sam Bell made some good money and was able to buy a house and lives very happily now. Yes, the girl with the yellow dress is basically Sam Bell's daughter, who he eventually ends up having a live video conversation with. There's a theory, or maybe it's more than a theory, that identical twins are able to sense certain things that are happening to their twin, even if they're not, in direct communications with them. And the idea with the Sams is that maybe there's an even closer link with them, because rather than just being identical twins, they actually have exactly the same experiences at the point when they wake up. So there is this kind of more, I don't know, an even greater connection between the Sams than there is between identical twins. So the idea with the girl in the yellow dress is really that Sam, as he's sort of reaching the end of his life cycle of 3 years, is actually starting to pick up on visions of his daughter. So that was the idea behind that. It was actually it's a sociological design from Luna's perspective, that basically you want someone who's going to work long enough to, be most value for money, get the most work you can out of them, but give them a short enough contract that they actually feel that it's worth doing and that they'll actually get on with the job and do it properly. 3 years felt about right. It could have been shorter, but I think 3 years you get the most bang for your buck.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you very
Let's thank Duncan
much.
one more time.